Sorry, that's just me doing my thoughtful gaze off into the distance in a catalogue for moustaches kind of way. Greetings and welcome to another Smashing Pistons video. You probably recognise this place. It's Royd Farm Wind Farm, or Royd Road Wind Farm. It's a wind farm, and this road's Royd Road or something. I can't remember the exact details, not that it matters. And you may notice that I'm wearing a big leather baby grow again, which can only mean one thing. It's another bike video. Now, I've not done one of these for quite a while. I don't know, not because I've fallen out of love with a bike or anything, just because the car scene seems to have taken over this year somewhat. Everything seems to be car related, and I hardly ever take the bike. I think the last thing I took the bike to was when I met Matt at Great British Car Journey. I can't even remember what was supposed to be going on there. I think we just met up for dinner or something. But anyway, yeah, I thought I'd bring this out for a bit of a jollies, and yeah, maybe I'll do some talking about it, because I don't know whether I've done a look round video on this yet. So yeah, let's have a go. So some of you bike types probably already know. It's a Honda. If you can read as well, that helps. But it's a Honda, and it's Honda's pretty much their staple road sports bike. I read somewhere that CBR stands for City Bike Racing, but I'm not entirely certain if that's true. But yes, it's the standard sort of affair that you get with 600cc road bikes, which is exactly what this is. So it was been the early 2000s, Honda stopped doing the CBR600. They'd had quite a run with it, and it had splintered off into two separate versions, really. Well, actually three if you count the CBR 600RR. But yeah, there was quite a few different versions flying about. So you kind of, in the 90s, well, in the 80s when it started, in the 90s there was the CBR600F, and that's what this one is. But this is a 2012 plate, so it's the last of them, unfortunately, because shortly after this one, they decided that a 650 engine was better, but it had less power output, and the reason for that is it meant that they could limit it down to people on is it A2 or A1, the limited license anyway. So yeah, that's kind of where this one ended. Yeah, so it had a bit of a weird upbringing, really. So yeah, the 80s they started off with the CBR600F, and then it kind of splintered. There was steel frame to start with, the jelly molds they called them, and then the one that I had was still a steel frame. I'll put a picture here or something. Which was my first big bike, and I loved that bike. And then they did an alley framed one, which was slightly newer and obviously lighter, with it being an aluminium frame and all that. And then they started splintering it off into CBR600F and the CBR600R. So the R ones were generally more racy, so you had sort of lower down handlebars and other fanciful bits and pieces. I assume bigger calipers and stuff like that. And then they did a CBR600RR, which was like a super race one. And then the F just kind of got dropped. I mean, there was the Hornet around, which is like a naked version of that, pretty much, but more city uppy, and without any fairing on it. So those sorts of bikes became popular, and I think fed city bikes, if you want to call it a city bike, I still call it a sports bike, became less of a thing, really. But yeah, so they kind of dropped them in the early 2000s, I think it was. No doubt I'll correct myself with a note on the screen if I feel fanciful enough. But yeah, then some years later, they reintroduced them. They brought this model out, which was, I think it was 2010. I think they brought this one out. Let's wait for this car to go past. There we go. So 2010 they brought this one out, and to be quite honest, it's one of the forgotten bikes of the bike world, because as I say, it was only sandwiched between bringing this one out and then them changing the format to one, let's say, less favourable with experienced bikers, if that makes sense. Yeah, and I think it was tied together with different biking licensing laws that came out, because they had the 500cc twin as well, which I was looking at when I got this. And I sat on one, I thought, it's just tiny, it's like a toy bike, whereas this feels far more like a bike. So, yeah, it was favourable. But yeah, not many people know or even remember this one, if they did know about it in the first place. So I'll give you a quick look round as to what makes it particularly special and particularly a bargain, to be honest. You can still pick a fairly low mileage one of these up for between sort of £3,500–4,500, and honestly, for the sort of performance you get out of one, you don't need anything else. Honestly, a 600cc bike is more than plentiful enough for the road. Yeah, I can only imagine what a 1000cc one's like. I can't imagine that the enjoyment gained is any more exponentially greater than this, to be honest. So let's have a quick look around it. It's at its trick bits, and I'll explain why I think it's such a good bargain. I will. So as you can probably see from the front, oh, we'll wait for this car to go past again. So as you can probably see from the front, it's got some funny gold coloured shock absorbers on the forks. Well, they're not shock absorbers, they are the forks. And these are Showa suspension forks, which are pretty good. You tend not to find sort of high quality stuff like Showa and Nissin products on sort of runaround bikes, and these are particularly good forks. They are meant to be the dog's knackers. I mean, I'm not a good enough biker to notice the difference in everyday riding, and obviously it's got a monoshock at the back that's a Showa as well. But yes, they do. Not only do they perform well, but they look pretty cool. They look pretty cool, don't they? Goldy coloured shock covers, fork covers, whatever you want to call that bit. Yeah, I like them. I've really parked this in a stupid way around. I should have put it other way around, but never mind. So the other thing that you will notice, if I can take you around this way, that might be easier. Here we go. We'll sit in grass. It's got quite big calipers at the front. If you can see past that grass, and the reason for that is, possibly on the other side. I'll have a look in a bit. And the rear one's the same, but here we go. The reason for that caliper, or the calipers at the front and the back looking big, is because of this thing here, combined ABS. Now this was a thing that Honda brought out. I think they pioneered it. I don't know whether any other companies did it or do it. But one of the things with motorcycling, well, not one of the things. It's not even tricky. One of the many things you've got to be mindful when you're riding a motorcycle is braking, because bikes are all about balance. And in a car, obviously, you can just yam on your brakes as hard as you want, and you're not going to fall off. But in a bike, if you lose traction when you're braking, it can be pretty disastrous, really, can't it? They're not the most comfortable of machines to be leaning and slowing down on. So Honda came up with, obviously, the ABS, which is not a Honda invention, but combined ABS. Now, This might not sound like much to non-bikey folk. When you put the front brake on a bike, it dives forward because the centre of gravity is moving forward on the bike. So it's moved the centre of gravity moves forward, so it means more weight's above the front wheels, which is great if you're wanting to stop really fast, because it means you've put in more friction into the front tyre, which is incidentally why the front wheel can be really. In fact, I'll spin you around and show you, because that's a professional way of doing it. Yeah, which is incidentally is why the front wheel can be thin-ish compared to the big fat mama one at the back, because this one's job is primarily putting power down to the road, and this one's job is primarily stopping you sliding across tarmac when you brake. So they have different jobs to do, hence the different sizes. But yes, anyway, I go off the point here. So the combined braking, basically, your front brake on your brake lever, you put your front brake on, and two of these caliper pistons come into action. Boom, there we go. So you're braking with just your front brake. You put your rear brake on, which is the foot brake bit. So it puts pressure into this caliper at the back there, where your back disc is. But it also puts a bit of pressure into that centre. Well, I don't know whether it's the centre piston or one of the outer pistons. It might be that top piston. That seems to have got a separate bleed chamber on it. Yeah, so basically, when you brake with the rear brake, it also brakes with the front brake as well, and that's to give you that slow down stability. To be really, if you don't have that, basically you can lock the back wheel up on a bike just with the back brake, and it'll just snake around. But it just kind of makes it more stable. So if you're entering, I don't know, for example, if you're entering a corner and you need to slow down a bit to tip it in, putting back brake on, don't let it dive, but it just gives you that bit more stability when it's combined. A lot of people the person I spoke to when I bought it were like, oh, I can't tell the difference. But as soon as I got on the combined braking compared to the Suzuki GSX that I had before, I could tell a big difference, and it felt a lot more stable. So that's one good thing that Honda did, the combined braking system, and I think they still use it to this day, I think. To be honest, I'm a bit out of the biking scene, so maybe they don't anymore. Yes, so the shocks and the brakes, the Nissan brakes, and the combinedness of them. So that's the two trick bits at the front. Obviously, it's got daytime running lights up on this bit. What other trick bits did we have? Digital dash. So that was the nicest of the digital dash. In fact, let's see if I can turn it on so you can see it. You might not see much in day. There you go. And then you've got your rev counter across the top bar there. And it gives you how warm the engine is and your fuel gauge and all sorts of stuff. So that's another nice feature. What else did we get on here? So this hugger, this isn't standard. I don't know whether they came with one as standard, to be honest. They might not have. But this is a pyramid one, I think. Oh no, pug. Or puge, however you want to pronounce it. And then this part here, this has had what we call a tail tidy. So normally it would have had a big plastic bit that comes down with a number plate down here. Because the law stipulated, or does stipulate, if not rather sillily, the law stipulates that the rear, the number plate, I don't know whether we can get it in shot, there we go. The number plate has to come behind the back wheel from when it's manufactured, which is really silly because there's literally no reason for it to do that. It's not going to do anything in a rear end shunt if somebody runs into you. It's not a blooming bumper. Oh, it's a bit mucky. Yeah, there's literally no reason that I can think of for that at all. So yeah, this has had a tail tidy on, which I'll show you again. So yeah, rather than having a plastic bit that comes out of this under back seat bit and then another plastic bit with a number plate on it, it's literally a metal bracket with a number plate on. Your number plate light, which you have to have by law, it's got a reflector stuck here because obviously that used to be on the big plastic bit, and then the indicators are just bolted to the back of it. Which leads me on to the second thing, is this under tray here. I'm not entirely certain whether that's standard or whether that's different with the tail tidy. I'll have to have a look on some adverts and see what it looks like. To be honest, that bit is not normally bits that they take photo of on adverts, is it? So you would never really know. Yeah, being a 2012 model, it's got LED rear lights. The indicators aren't LED. Obviously, that's not the original exhaust. The original exhaust is a big lump that sits under the belly and then has just a little bit coming out. So this is a Black Widow aftermarket exhaust, and then the bit underneath the bike has been taken out as well, which is nice in a way because it means it's got a bit of a nicer sound to it. And from this side it's fine because there's that chrome plate there which fills it in. But the problem is that massive gap there is where the stock exhaust would have filled in. So it'd be nice if there was some sort of plate to cover that up, or an extra belly pad. But hey ho, you can't see that while you're riding. So yeah, you've got shocks that are adjustable on top there. So there's compression and rebound, I think. There's two ways adjustable. I've put this tail piece on it. It just covers up the seat. Basically, if this isn't on, this bit's just seat. This is just a plastic cover because nobody else ever goes on it. So there's no point in me having the seat exposed. Although things for motorbikes do seem to cost a lot of money for no reason. For example, that seat cover were about 50 quid from memory, and that's pretty bonkers if you think about it. It's literally just a piece of ABS plastic painted in roughly the same colour as the bike. But yeah, you tend to find a lot of that sort of stuff with motorbike things, like the blooming hell, I can't remember what it's called again. The thing that covers the rear wheel up, the rear hugger. They don't put them on from factory, but they'll charge you 160 quid for one if you want it fitting, and that's just typical of what bikes have been like for a while. And it's kind of getting that way with cars, if I understand correctly. Like new cars, even like electric cars, oh yeah, you can have all these other bits, but you need to pay to get them unlocked. Even if it's just like a software feature, you've got to pay to get it unlocked. So that's a bit of a bad point with new vehicles in general. Yeah, let me show you a bit more if you're not already bored. So you can kind of see where it's Hornet underpinnings are. So yeah, they do a version of this but without the fairing. I think it might be slightly different seating arrangement as well. But yes, it's like what they call a naked sports bike, which doesn't mean you have to ride it naked, but obviously you can if you want, it's up to you. But yes, the underpinnings, like for example here, this is the mirror mount. So if it was on a Hornet, this is where your mirror would be mounted. Well, obviously mine's faired, so my mirrors are miles away in front of me, and it's tricky to reach them when I'm riding, to be honest. Let's do a bit of a view from across the road. So there we go. There's a car coming in a minute, so we'll probably have to pause for that. But yeah, all the fluorescent yellow bits that you can see, they're not standard. They're what I've stuck on. I was thinking of getting the wheels done and fluorescent yellow and leaving everything else black, but I don't know. I might do, I might not. I kind of like it like that, but there's a Yamaha that's that's done like that, so maybe not. But yeah, it's an altogether a nice shaped bike, I think. I can't think of anything I don't like about it. I certainly have a vivid memory of riding away from the bike shop when I bought it and thinking to myself, yeah, you've made the right decision here. Even though when I bought it, and I'll show you this in a second, when I bought it, the exhaust didn't have a baffle in it, because it's a sports exhaust. You can take the baffle out of it, so it was literally just a straight through pipe at the time, and it was crazy monkeys. So much noise, and yeah, my ride from Leeds was pretty much just M1 all the way home. So yeah, that was a bit bonkers, but yeah, the bike itself is gorgeous, and it's such a nice riding position as well. It's not too low, it's not high, it's not all city uppy, and it's not super bike crunchy your back out style. It's a nice bit in between. For me, it's the right size. There's plenty of space for me to get tucked in behind the screen. The screen's a double bubble one anyway, which I think is standard. It says Honda on it, so I assume it is, unless it were an option. And that gives you plenty of protection from the wind and stuff. So when you're riding along at whatever speed it is you happen to be doing, you don't get buffeted about too much. Yeah, it's comfy. There's nothing. I've been on rides where I've been in the saddle for a couple of hours, and it's been welcome to get off and have a bit of a stretch, but it's not been uncomfortable. With the tractor coming, let me show you the exhaust bit. In fact, I'll even let you watch this tractor come past. Are you ready? Are you ready for tractor action? Tractor action, which is different to traction. Yeah, so when I originally bought it, this bit here, so the shinier bit, so this ring is the outside of it, that bit was not in there, and that's a baffle, and it's pretty much just a tube, just a bit, maybe 2/3 of the length of the pipe, same diameter as the smaller bit in there, with loads of holes in it. So the idea is it baffles the noise. When that's not in there, it is tray loud, because literally there's nothing between the exhaust headers. There's just a tube that spins round a bit, that's about that diameter, and then into this. And because this is quite wide and open-ended, it's very boomy. So yeah, the first thing I did was order the baffle for it, to not only save my own ears, but for me to not annoy people when I ride through their little villages. So there we go. That's just a quick look at the Honda CBR600F. The last I tell you, of the proper 600 bikes. And I feel they may be reverting back to doing 600 bikes again, from the 650s, because maybe they've not been a total sales success that they expected them to be. Because that was the other nail in the 600 coffin. People weren't buying sports bikes. People weren't interested in them. But I think that might be changing. There was a massive hike into adventure bikes, which to me, anybody can have their own opinion on what bikes they like. It's not a dictatorship. It's just a YouTube channel. But to me, an adventure bike, unless you're taking it on bumpy terrain, is the equivalent of having an off-road capable car and just using it to go to Meadowall. Oh, I'm just good at shops in my massive 4x4 that does like 15 miles per gallon. There's what's point in it? You might as well have a bike that's designed for the terrain that you ride on. I only ride on roads. I got a road bike. But yeah, there was a big shift towards adventure bikes. I'm not sure whether that's still a thing or whether it's disappearing. And then yeah, the naked sports bikes, they are easier to work on because there's no fairing to take off when you want to do stuff. But they don't look as nice, do they? They don't look as nice, in my opinion, anyway. Yeah, and then there's the kind of retro thing as well. So a lot of people liking retro type bikes, like your single cylinders and your twins, and like your Triumphs and stuff. And what's the other ones? There's a few older brands that are sort of coming back, but made in China. So there's a few things, a bit like the MG of the car world, really. So there's a few of that sort of stuff going on, and they're quite nice. To be honest, I wouldn't mind, along with this, a smaller CC bike just to mess about with, just to fix up. Something with more character, well, not more character, a different character. Because that's the thing with bikes, you can get such a variety of different engine configurations. They all have their own characters anyway, whether they're good or bad. You get singles, twins, V-twins, triples. Triumph do the speed triple and the street triple, which is apparently a best of both worlds. You get the howl of the 4 with the torque of a twin. I just get a 4. I've never been bothered about triples. Ducati do some random stuff as well. There's all sorts of things in the bike world to do with engines. It's far more of a selling point in the bike world than it is in the car world. I'll tell you that for note. So, quick change of position. Right, so there. Thank you very much for joining me. Hope you enjoyed this little look at my motorcycle. If you've got any questions, put them in the comment bits below, or just any general comments, put them down there. It's nice to show you around something that's not a car for a change. And yeah, the whole point of me doing this is to see whether I do still fancy getting rid, or whether I'm gonna keep hold of it. Yeah, tricky one to decide. It's enjoyable, and it's not costing me anything really sat there. So take care. Don't forget to click like, leave a comment, share with your friends, share with your I don't know, not enemies anymore, because Matt pointed out if you share with your friends and your enemies, your friends might think that they're your enemies, and your enemies might think that they're your friends. I don't know, share with your supermarket assistant, you know, them Bobber Job Cub Scout people that help you pack your shopping in Asda once a year. Them, share it with them. They might tell their friends, like in Boys Brigade or whatever it is. I don't know. Bye.